Another point to make is to offer overwhelming respect to one another. And I know by saying this, I am treading on a dangerous territory. And so I will give this as a caveat. All of these examples that I'm giving are never examples that are used in situations of abuse or domestic violence. This is all assuming that you have a relatively stable family and that you are seeking just different methods to improve the unity, the peace, and the love in your family. So with that being said, offering overwhelming respect to one another can be very difficult. But when you think about our needs as human beings, one of the greatest needs we have is to feel respected. It's to feel like others respect and honor the contributions we bring. It's to feel seen and to feel known. These are things that, when they're neglected, can really put a lot of weight on our hearts and can tremendously overwhelm our ability to show up in our lives. So with that being so important, imagine what would happen if you made it a point to offer that respect to one another. And maybe it ends up being that you're the first person to take this step. So for example, if you're married, I want you to spend, as an exercise, spend 3 days making a point to be grateful for what your partner does. Okay. This, I know, is going to, again, be something I have to tread lightly on, because people are going to be like, why am I going to be grateful for or show gratitude for things that they should be doing? Or they don't do much. For example, if some folks might say that they don't do much, so why would I go out of my way to reinforce respecting what they barely do when I want them to do more? Hold off on those thoughts and just think about what this exercise might do and try it out and see what happens. So spending 3 days making a point to be grateful for what your partner does, while letting slide what they slack on, unless it's harmful. Right. So example, let's say your child was supposed to, you gave them 3 chores to do, and they only did half of one chore. Making it a point to say, I really appreciate that you did XYZ. Yes, I know it's your job, and I know that they should have been doing it regardless. And, this is essentially their way of paying rent for living in your house. But just imagine how amazing it would feel for them to see, hey, when I make a contribution to my family, when I do something that I'm supposed to do, it's recognized and it's appreciated deeply. As humans, when those things happen, it makes it so that we're more willing to take on responsibility, and we're more willing to do that because, again, that positive reinforcement comes into play. So it's a really wonderful way of going about it. And this is also a marriage counseling technique that's used, right? If you are finding that you might feel like your spouse is slacking on certain things, just being very intentional about being appreciative about what they do for you, and then slowly introducing what it is that you'd like for them to do in addition. This kind of brings us to another point, which is another interesting counseling type technique called family fulfilling prophecies. So if there are certain things that you want your family to do, or you want to implement as part of the peace plan in your family, if it's not happening, try to find something that is adjacent to that, an action that's adjacent to that, and encouraging it as if it's constantly happens. So for example, let's say you want to have dinner with your family every evening. Maybe it's not something you guys do. You guys tend to eat separately. Well, family fulfilling prophecy would mean saying something along the lines of, do you remember when we used to eat together? And maybe it didn't happen very often in the past, but you're bringing it up as if it did happen very often. And so what that does is it brings back fond memories. And then you can talk about how you actually want to re-implement this. And now people are going to be more willing and more comfortable with the idea of introducing an entirely new norm in your household. Or another family fulfilling prophecy that can happen is, for example, let's say one person in the family might have a tendency to lash out, or they have anger issues. if your typical reaction is, oh God, here we go again, or oh, this person's about to get angry again, think about switching it over to something along the lines of, and I know it might sound a little deceptive, but hang with me here and kind of see the logic behind it. Saying things like, it's not like you to get this angry. And everyone might kind of look at that and be like, no, it is like this person to get kind of this angry. But what you're doing is you're creating that family fulfilling prophecy. You're saying what you'd like to happen, and you're emphasizing, well, maybe it isn't like this person to get angry like this all the time. It's not like they're angry 24/7. So technically you're not being dishonest, but you're emphasizing the better side of it. And you'd be surprised at how that works. I remember listening to a lecture, and I forgot which scholar it was that I was listening to, but he was describing the habit that many Arabs of the Prophet ﷺ's time had, where they would name their children or give nicknames to their children based on the specific characteristic they wanted their children to have. And because of that, it was advised to constantly set out constantly praise your children with those specific characteristics. And it'd be really interesting to see then those characteristics would develop in their children. This is something, again, that has been supported by psychological research.